aware of what was significant about the FDR in Churchill meeting in Newfoundland in 1941, and then they can focus on the significance of it. And I would just change maybe slightly the question on like 1B as well. What were the key legislation passed? What did they do? Key legislation with regard to what? Everything just be a little bit specific about that. And you also re-corrected yourself on question 4B. Eventually you said how many Americans died and what was their response. Okay, so and what was America's response? Which I think was a better way of phrasing it. So sometimes when you were talking, you gave better questions. It was almost like reading it aloud, making the changes. So.
Alright, so in regard to what Dr. Hicks was saying, he mainly was focusing on this question, which basically, where and what did the meeting with FDR and Churchill have? So in going back and modifying my actual lesson that I presented in my student teaching, I rephrased it to basically, when and why did Churchill and FDR meet? What was the significance of this meeting? So I was able to get a more confined question, as well as more room, like I said, to answer this question. So again, just going back to how I phrase my questions, and like Dr. Hicks said, it's a battle, I guess, as a teacher. Is in your head, on paper, you might write down a question, but when you're actually teaching, things change, and you're able to modify what your questions are.
I know that we went through and read our spill, what's important to understand about this, but it might have been helpful if she told the students just so they knew. I think we probably all had the important points, but maybe 10th or 11th graders would they might not, especially just for studying, if they use this to study for a test. So maybe just kind of reiterate what you wanted them to know.
Alright, so again, in modifying my lesson, originally, again, this space is so limited, and I did kind of drop the ball in really confining what I wanted my students to have, to take. So what I did, though, in modifying my lesson was, I had a different slide which just basically highlighted this part, and I gave a much more inclusive definition, and at the end of class I made sure that students, I reiterated what I had in here just to make sure that they had that at least written down on top of what they said. So this part was a lot, because like what the student said was important, this is the whole point of the lesson. So if students don't have that, then really they didn't get meet my objectives or what I wanted them to do. So again, I changed what I wanted them to know, and I reiterated what they should have left class with.
Good idea, making it your own. And I think what I would do is I wouldn't add any more notes. You had a lot of notes. In fact, I think you could have consolidated a couple of them to make them less. So don't add, because you're making it bigger, don't feel like you need to add more. There can be gaps, and there can be, don't feel like you've got to fill the space. That's good. Thank you very much, Paul. Thanks.
Alright, so again, just showing how I set it up, what I did was I still kept with my 8 questions, and I divided them out into 2 pages. So again, I didn't add any more information, rather I just changed the questions, made more space, and modified or stretched out the questions themselves. So those were the changes I made from the cohort and those suggestions I had, and the lesson did go over really well. One student at the end of class was surprised that the class had ended because she was so involved with the actual lesson. So I'm thankful for that, as well as the input I was given. So where have I come and what I have accomplished? The next slide is actually kind of freaky. I was looking through my material and I found this sheet that I created in 2006. And so basically what I did was my future goals as a civic leader, or really as I guess as a person, I guess it would be where do you want to be in 5 years? I guess that's what it would be. So key point is this was in March 8th, 2006, so over 3 years ago. And so my first one was be on the Dean's List until I graduated. When I made this, I was on the Dean's List, even at Virginia Tech, every single semester, so check, I did that. Graduate on time in May 2008, I did that. I graduated in 4 years. Pass the practice and get my educational requirements done. I will have that. Do my practicum in another country. I didn't really qualify, but I did study abroad in Germany, so I feel like that kind of fits in. Earn a master's in either education or history. I'm attempting to get my education master's. Get a teaching position in a good county or school. I said that's pending. students pass the SOLs and my class. I'm not too worried about it because, like you've seen, I feel like I know how to create lessons that reach the content, the standards, as well as the national standards. So I have all the requirements and tools to make my class very good and informative. So I'm not too worried about that. And then building lasting friendships with my students and parents, I think after my student internship and as well as my field placement, I think that I did a good job at meeting that. So, like I said, this was 3 years ago, and it's almost remarkable that I was able to still meet these standards and goals. So, with that, that's it.
Thank you. Can you take us to your electronic portfolio?
Yeah.
Please? Okay. Thanks. Okay, same questions as
Okay.
probably
So, in
already.
task.
Yeah, in task. But which is one that really you feel like you've got some really good evidence there on?
Okay, I would probably have to say in task 3, which basically approaches or to adopt for diverse learners. I took exceptional learners and course, and with that I took it online with another professor, and with that we had to do a research paper which basically was in relation to your content. So I looked at all this material, how to accommodate, change my material. So I have this inclusive paper which basically represents what a teacher and student should do in meeting the needs of students with special needs. And so this is just kind of a flow chart of what can be included. And so down here I have incorporating videos, websites, digital histories, getting input from students, working with the special ed aid, and then again this paper just explains different methods and ways that you can do that in a social studies class. That I think is important to modify your material because social studies is so fact-based that you need to find ways to reach and appeal to students with special needs. And so I think this paper does a good job at getting me familiar with the ways that this can be done. Another thing I did too was I took disability in society, and what I did was I was assigned a time period in history in the movement in America, and I was assigned 1970s to present day. So this is basically kind of where the special ed movement basically did leaps and bounds from going from institutionalized and being kind of locked up to now we have inclusive schools and students have a better chance at getting an education. So this is kind of a PowerPoint slide which just walks through the different legislation that's been passed, IDEA and ADA, and it's just real inclusive to know what's going on. And I also have some global effects, like globally, the disability movement are still kind of suppressed, and they're subjected to harsh times. So I think it's a good, again, it gave me a good basis to see what's out there in the progress that this movement has made. And with that, this is just a handout that sums up what that presentation shows. And then finally, in my disability in society, we also made, with other members of my cohort, we made a social studies inclusive PowerPoint. Basically, this talks about modification, assessment, adaptations, collaboration. It's very informative. And again, it only focuses on social studies as well as working with other content teachers and those around the school. So I think not only have I gotten a lot of social studies methods and how to create lessons, but I think in terms of special education, I think I have a large background of what works best, and especially in social studies. So I think in that sense, I'm very thankful for having all that I've been given. So yeah, I think that's important.
Take me to another in task and talk me through one of your choosing, please.
Okay, I'll go to 6, which basically talks about technology. And again, with most of us, we've heard the term digital native and working with technology. And so basically what I pretty much have is I have different presentations or links that I've actually used with technology. So for here,